and welcome back to another episode of Sherburne Public Library Book Talks. This episode is very special because we have some members of our preteen book club joining us today, and we will be talking about some of our favorite children's books. So I will go first. The book that I picked is called Savvy by Ingrid Law. I picked it because when I was in 5th and 6th grade, it was one of my favorite books, and I read it constantly. It's part of a trilogy, which is very exciting. So if you read this book and you like it, there are 2 more that continue on in the series. So Savvy is about a 12-year-old girl, and her name is Mibs, and she is part of a family who has very special powers, and their powers are called Savvies. And on their 13th birthday, each child in the family gets their own savvy, and it could be anything. For example, one of Mibs's older brothers is able to control the weather, so he can create hurricanes and tornadoes, and he can make it rain or shine. So the day before her 13th birthday, Mibs is very excited to get her own savvy, but then her father is in a terrible work accident, and he has to go to the hospital. So Mibs's mother and her oldest brother go to the hospital with her father, and he goes into a coma, and they don't know if he's going to be okay or not. So the next day, her 13th birthday, Mibs wakes up, and she thinks that her savvy is she's able to kind of bring things awake in a way, not really back from the dead, but kind of render them conscious. So she gets this idea that she can go to the hospital where her father is in a coma, and she can wake him up from the coma. So at her birthday party, she hops a bus, and her brother finds her on the bus, and he decides to go with her, and they set off for the hospital where her father is. And along the way, they pick up some more misfits on the side of the road, and they have a pretty crazy time. You know, the cops get involved because technically Mibs is missing, and it gets pretty messy. But in the end, everything is fine because she gets her real savvy, because it's not what she thought it was, and she gets to the hospital, and she talks to her father, and he comes out of his coma, and everything is okay again. I really like this book because it kind of takes that idea of if you could have a superpower, what would it be? And it kind of applies it to a real life situation. Like, this book obviously is fictional because the kids have superpowers, but I think it also tells it in a very realistic way. And they also have superpowers that I wouldn't have even thought about having, which I thought was really cool. And I just really like this book, and the other books in the series are also great. And I think that you should read it. It's great for 4th, 5th, 6th graders. It's just a really good book. So there's that. If nobody has any comments or questions, then we can move on to Isaac talking about the book that he picked.
Just a few quick questions. How many books are in the series?
There are 3 books in the series. Yep, I think the next one is called Scumble, and it's all about learning how to control your savvy so it doesn't just happen when you don't want it to. Whenever you're ready, Isaac.
Okay, so the book I picked, I don't have it on hand. It's called Fablehaven. It's about these 2 children. They are brother and sister. The brother, Seth, is 13. His sister is 15. And so their grandparents, well, one pair of their grandparents, they die in a trailer, like in an accident. And so they had a fund And so when they died, they wanted all of their children and relatives to go on this trip. And so they went on there, except the grandchildren were not invited. So the grandchildren went to their other grandparents' house. So they go to their grandparents' house, and so at first they think it's going to be a really boring stay, except then they find fun things to do. Like there's a tree house and a pool, except there were 2 rules that they had to follow. One of them was stay out of the barn, since their grandparents' house was, well, their property was a farm kind of thing. At least they think that. And the other rule is to stay out of the woods. And the grandma is supposedly visiting an aunt. So later, they find out a secret in a journal that they needed to find keys that were hidden in their room. And so the only thing that's in there are words on a couple pages, drink the milk. So the older sister, Kendra, had earlier seen one of the farmhands putting milk behind the hedges. And so she asks her brother, Seth, to drink it and dares him. And so he does. And then he can see fairies everywhere. And so Kendra drinks the milk, and she can also see the fairies. And so then the grandpa comes, and so he just talks to them, and he explains that he has his property is a place of magical creatures. It's kind of like a wildlife resort for magical creatures. So then they're like, whoa. And so they find out about this day. There are 4 every year. They're called the festival nights. And it's when all of the bad creatures can go around the property. They can't come into the house if there is someone in there, but they can come into the yard. You cannot be out there after dawn. The festival nights are on the solstices and equinoxes. They were unluckily there when that happened. And so they were told to just stay in their room and don't open any windows, which would let the bad things come in. And so they had extra protection in their room when there were children in it. They wanted to stay in their grandparents' room, but he wanted them to stay in there since it was the safest place. And so Seth has this great idea to look out the window. And so earlier he had a problem with fairies, and the fairies didn't like him very much. Okay, long story short, there were pumpkins that had fairies or artificial lighting inside, since they protected the place more from the beings of evilness. And so they leave because they saw who they were protecting. And so then he sees a baby sitting on the windowsill, and so there are wolves and stuff about to eat it, and so he thinks it's a trick, but then he feels like he has no other choice, and he opens the window, and the baby turns into a goblin, jumps in along with 3 wolves and a giant centipede. And so then doing that lost all magic, the protection from the whole house. And so once the monsters had left the room, then they were safe and no monsters could come in again. Except in the morning, they found out that the monsters had taken their parents, not their parents, sorry, their grandparents and all of the people, except for the farmhand who had been turned into lead. But so they, on their trail, find out that their grandma was actually a chicken that was in their room. And so they heal her, which allows a witch to escape, which allows a demon to escape. And then all of them, except for Kendra, is captured. I'll leave the rest to read.
Wow. This is this like a series, obviously, but is it like a big series?
There are 5 books. And then there's another series that is still being written. There are 4 so far.
Okay. Wow. That sounds like action-packed, very exciting. A lot of fantasy going on. That sounds really interesting. I'll have to check those out. Well, thank you for sharing, Isaac. And now we've got Evie, who is going to share the book that she picked with us.
Okay, I'd like to share this one book, and it is the first in a big series. This book is, you may have heard of the series Warrior Cats. Well, this is the first book in the series, Into the Wild. This book starts out as, I don't know, just a cat. He's having a great dream of him hunting a mouse. He's so close. He tries to catch it and then he wakes up. In that dream, he was free of his collar, of his 2 legs, or humans, but he was free of everything and he wanted a taste of the wild now. So he went outside and he told his friend Smudge that he was going to try to catch a mouse. So he hopped over the fence and he heard noises from the bushes. Suddenly a gray cat just jumped out of the bushes and they fight for a long time. None of them really getting hurt. It's more of just play fighting. Then the cat reveals himself to be Graypaw, and Graypaw is very friendly to the main character's name, the main character whose name is Rusty. So Rusty and Graypaw make great friends, and then 3 other cats jump out of the bushes. Their names are Lionheart, Blue Star, and White Storm. Blue Star being the leader of their clan, Thunder Clan. And she basically says to Rusty, "Do you want to join?" Rusty needs a day or 2 to think about it, but after those day or 2s, he happily accepts, and he abandons Smudge. So then he's in the clan, he's introduced, but there's one cat that doesn't seem friendly to him. Actually, a few. But this one, called Longtail, he walks up to him and starts fighting. Blue Star doesn't try to stop it because she thinks that Rusty would need to prove himself. So Longtail, at one point during the fight, he scratches off Rusty's collar, and Blue Star takes it as a sign that he should be a good part of their clan. So she gives him his apprentice name so he can start training to be a warrior. His apprentice name is Firepaw. Firepaw, and Graypaw. Well, Paw is basically the last name to any cat who's an apprentice. They make Firepaw makes friends with this cat named Ravenpaw, which is another apprentice, but not before Ravenpaw runs into camp, frantically screaming, injured, saying, "Redtail is dead!" And then he faints on the floor. Spotted Leaf, the medicine cat, quickly tries to heal him up, and his mentor, Tiger Claw, comes in with the dead body of Redtail. They mourn for a long time, but after the mourning, Blue Star has to pick another deputy because a deputy is kind of like a second in command, and she picks her second in command to be Lionheart. They train for a very long time in the book until Firepaw finds a random cat from a different clan called Shadow Clan, and she's just kind of out there stealing prey, very injured. And he basically tries to shoo her off, but she doesn't listen. And then Blue Star walks in on him giving her prey because he felt bad. And Blue Star basically takes in Yellowfang because they're old friends. And then no one really trusts Yellowfang. Then Yellowfang just kind of tells everyone that her former clan, Shadow Clan, drove Wind Clan out, another clan. There's a lot of clans. So, after that, the whole clan gets into a big argument, but accepts Yellowfang to be another medicine cat. Spotted Leaf doesn't like that because she wants to be the medicine cat. So to make this a little bit quicker, I'm going to fast forward to the gathering. The gathering is basically where all the clans come together. Wind Clan does not show up. Thunder Clan and Shadow Clan knows about this. River Clan does not. Those are the 3 remaining clans. They talk and talk until the leader of Shadow Clan, Broken Star, just kind of gets up on the rock and he announces that they drove out Wind Clan and that any clan that's smart enough to not be them should alliance and share territories. River Clan accepts. Thunder Clan does not. And then Broken Star says, "Well, the cat you found, Yellowfang, is actually a murderer." So they rush back. Yellowfang's not a murderer. They all know that. Firepaw knows that. Blue Star does too. No one else does. So they're all like, "Yellowfang's not a murderer." Then they believe them. Soon after that, Ravenpaw is just very sad. Firepaw asks, "Well, what's up?" And then he reveals that Tiger Claw actually is the one that murdered Redtail. And Firepaw is surprised. He tells Graypaw, and they keep it a secret. And Ravenpaw has been being tortured by his mentor Tiger Claw, so they rush to the end of the borer and they give up Ravenpaw to a barn cat, Barley, who will take good care of him. And then Firepaw and Graypaw come to Shadow Clan camp, and a patrol's already there because they were going to fight Shadow Clan anyway. So they join in the rain, and they fight for a long time until Broken Star accepts being driven out and runs off. And then his deputy Nightfur is now the new leader of Shadow Clan. Firepaw and Graypaw get their warrior names, Gray Stripe and Fireheart, and then Tiger Claw says a menacing quote. He's, well, not really menacing, but he basically tells them to watch out or else, because Tiger Claw pretty much knows that they know. The end.
Wow. Just like Isaac's books, those seem very in-depth. Lots of storylines.
How many times have you read that? Because by the amount of detail that you've said that with, that sounds like you've read it at least 5 times.
More than that, countless.
How many times have you read the whole series?
I'm still not done with the whole series. I'm done with like 30 something books, but I'm not done with the series yet.
How many books do you think are in the entire series, if you had to guess?
50 something.
Wow.
And they're still writing. Like
Wow. That is crazy. So much detail in these books that you guys picked, and they're both part of bigger series than mine were. Wow. Yeah. So we've got some really interesting books to look into here. And luckily, if you like them, there will be a lot more to read where the first one came from. Well, thank you everybody for watching. This has been another episode of the Sherburne Public Library Book Talks. We have all of these books at our library, at least part of the series. And we hope this book talk inspires you to check some of them out. So thanks for watching.